Hey, what's going on? We're going to have a look at the game between Fabiano Caruana, the recently not crowned, but the recent challenger to the World Championship. He will play Magnus Carlsen in a match in, I believe, November of this year. And we got a preview today, only 4 days after Caruana won the right. He gets to play against the world champion in the first round of the Grenke Classic. Now the game opened with d4 and knight f6. And I'm just enjoying my Easter egg here. I removed the bunny. So now we have these chocolate Easter eggs, and usually there's like a saying inside it. So let's check out what I got. In Icelandic it's betra iðjulaus að vera en illt að gera, which rhymes. But in English, yeah, I guess it would be, it's better to be idle than to be evil. So better to do nothing than to be evil. Better to be idle than evil. So with that in mind, who cares? That's a decent saying though. But let's get on to the game at hand. We got Caruana with white, Carlsen with black. Now Carlsen went g6. I mean, Carlsen plays everything under the sun. So here he's going for the King's Indian. But yeah, he has been more playing like e6 and d5 stuff. But this game is very interesting because they will meet each other later this year in a World Championship match. So I guess neither of them really wants to show their hand at this stage. So we see that with knight f3, bishop g7, and now e3 by white. This is a very non-critical continuation. But I mean, there's recently a book written about this called E3 Poison, about lines where white's just going e3, just aiming to get a position. You know, not having a theoretical battle. Just wants to play a chess game and have an equal middle game, and then try to outplay from there. So we have castles, bishop to e2, d6, knight c3, and knight c6 by Carlsen. This is sort of like white is playing with French. So black here really could go for a reversed King's Indian attack type of structure by playing knight d7, knight b7, then at some point e5, aiming for e4, and playing it like white plays it in a King's Indian attack, get the pawn on e4. I believe that must be the critical test of this setup, but Carlsen goes for knight c6. Similar to what he's been doing against e4 when he's going e4, d6, d4, knight c6, or even knight c6 on the first move. He doesn't mind this knight being pushed around. That's what he played in some rapid games and blitz games in Riyadh and some other recent games. So this knight gets kicked around. I'm trying not to get distracted. There's an NBA game that I've been watching, but we'll leave that for later. This is more important. So knight b4. Carlsen doesn't mind the knight being kicked around. a3, and now knight to a6. Here Caruana played knight to d4. b4 would be a feasible move to stop the knight coming to c5, but here it will fail tactically because knight takes d5 unleashes this bishop here down this diagonal. And now I'm playing around with the colors just because I can. So yeah, knight d4. The knight is well posted here in the center, so let's make it green, man. It's a green knight, the green goblin. It's well posted here in the center. It's stopping the c5 push because we're covering this square, and it's also blunting this diagonal a little bit, so that in some cases we can play b4 if the knight were to come to c5. Say if we play it here, it still might be playable for black, but either bishop e2 or takes. And yeah, we've been able to now fianchet to our bishop. White should be doing fine, but that's all irrelevant because Carlsen went with e5. Now Caruana took, and this is logical. At some point black has to do something in the center. He can't just play around. Eventually you have to play c5 or e5. c5 is not available, so e5 is logical. Caruana decided not to live with that pawn on e5. He could do so, trying to get a normal King's Indian structure, but he's probably a bit behind there with the pawn on e3 and having moved the knight now twice if he moves it to f3 or c2. So he took on e6. White castled and e5. So this knight has to move, and Caruana went with a knight to b3. And this doesn't make a huge impression on me. It doesn't seem like white has much. And after c6, Carlsen is ready to play d5 and get a strong pawn duo in the center. And therefore we're going to make them green, because they're strong. Now the thing about white's position is it doesn't really have any obvious pawn breaks, and black has an obvious pawn break. He wants to play d5. So white is sort of forced to play e4 to blunt that break. But now this knight on a6 starts to reroute. It comes to c7. And we can imagine a scenario where it goes to e6, and from there it has access to some potentially nice squares. f4, and yeah, the knight comes to e6. And now f5. And now a little bit of a tactical solution. Knight d4 by Carlsen. Caruana played bishop to e3. If he were to take on d4, he would have some problems. The main problem is if queen takes d4, you can probably just play knight g4, and okay, there are many ideas taking on, okay, if the queen goes back we can take on f5, there's ideas like queen h4, but there's also simply queen b6 if you want. And white doesn't have any good choices here. He has to give up the exchange, and I'm sure the world champion would be happy here. Next we resolve this tension, and that should be good for black. So no such business for Caruana, so he plays bishop e3. Knight takes on e2, queen takes, forced as e4 was hanging, otherwise if we take with the knight. G takes f5, everything is forced, and now d5. And Carlsen has managed to get this dynamic pawn duo in the center. Also he has the bishop pair. So I think we can conclude that black has gotten the upper hand here. Carlsen is better, and after the trade here and rook d1 he is playing for the win. He plays d4. Okay, we have this forkalicious move, but on the other hand the pin by the rook to the queen blunts the fork at the moment. So bishop g5 gets time to get out of the pin, out of the fork because of the pin. Queen b6, and now queen c4, a Zwischenzug, rook f7, and now knight a4. Queen comes back to c7, and here Caruana decided to accept the queen trade. If it doesn't, we can imagine a quick b6 and the bishop coming to b7, a very juicy square, and danger on this diagonal. So trading the queens seems like a good choice for white. He's trying to hold on here, trying to defend b6 by Carlsen. Kicks the knight and also opens up some opportunities for the bishop, either here or here. And now, yeah, a nice in-between move, bishop takes f6. And Carlsen elects to take on c5, like this. If he takes on f6, well, first of all, knight e4 is hitting the bishop, so the bishop must move or to be protected. Let's say we move it. Now white has time to prevent rook c2, let's say rook c1. And then he can play knight d2, and we have a nice blockade here on e4, a very strong knight. And probably white should be happy if this had happened, but Carlsen had other ideas. He took on c5. Okay, Caruana took on g7, king takes, and knight d2. I mean, otherwise black is just pushing, so we have to do something about these pawns. Bishop b7 renews the threat of e4. Caruana flicked in f6 check, and then rook d to e1. Rook e8, and once again this threat is on the card, so knight e4 is forced. And now Carlsen yet again shows pretty good endgame intuition, and in general it seems like this guy is much stronger than the knight, but Carlsen correctly swaps off the knight on e4, and he has evaluated that these pawns are just too strong. And he was correct in that evaluation, but did he manage to execute correctly? We'll see. Rook b8. He offers the trade of the e pawn for the b pawn. In that case, he will get doubled passed pawns. Now, what happens if rook f2? That's a very valid question. But I think it puts white too much on the back foot. Let's say rook f2 here, which he didn't play. And maybe we can just protect the pawn and then put the king here. And then slowly increase the pressure. Then maybe we play rook b5, threaten to take on b2. I think white doesn't want to be this passive, so he decided to go rook e5. At least he gets some counterplay there. Rook d5. And now c3, this pawn is threatening to run down the board. And Caruana, he found some counterplay. Rook to d8 check. And now rook h8. And now Carlsen had to be careful, but he had things under control with rook b to b7. Funny line here is this. When all of a sudden it's white who's winning because of the checkmate threat here on h5. But rook b to b7, rook takes, and king g6. Carlsen thought at the press conference that king to g8 would have been a better move, but it turns out that it doesn't really matter. But let's see what transpired. Rook takes e7, and now these pawns are very dangerous. So Carlsen's intuition was correct, and so far he has been up to the task in the execution of his plan. And now, okay, white must try to stop the pawns. He has only one way, bring the king, and these moves are more or less forced. After rook d7, threatening d2, king d2. So white has gotten this blockade, but it turns out that it's too dangerous, it's too far advanced, and after king takes f6, black should be winning. The game continued down the correct winning path. King e5, rook f1, and king to d4. But it was here that Carlsen missed the winning move. And it's a little bit counterintuitive. He played rook e7, which is not correct. It turns out that rook h7 is the winning move. Now we could go into a lot of lines, but the gist of it is that the rook on h7, although it looks passive, it is stopping these pawns from advancing. If g5, we take on h5. And obviously the h pawn can't move, we just take it. Moving the king, king c3. You have to deal with this, and then we have this coming. Can't do that. And moving the rook, let's say rook g1, rook h1, whichever one really. Then rook here, and again we're coming here, and that means we can put the king here and the pawns just roll. So it's a little bit of kind of a zugzwang for white, and if he tries checking, it doesn't really help because you have to go back, and then eventually we can come over to the other side And it turns out that white is always in a little bit of a zugzwang. Let's see. Let's say we give another check here. King b3. We can't take because queen, so let's say rook check here. Now we take the pawn. Again, okay, the rook is attacked, so let's say here. And now king here. We never have time to take the pawn because there's just rook check. Then we pick up the rook. And we're going to be in time to start the 2 pawns because we have an extra pawn over here. So even here, let's say the rook goes back. You never had time, and here actually white, black can just push the a pawn, push him baby, ding ding ding. And the fact of the matter is, even here white doesn't have time to take because of the rook check on d7, and wins. So okay, instead after rook e7, a complicated win, and which was of course found by the computer. But apart from that, Carlsen played a really good game, and Caruana was well, resourceful to find the draw. Okay, they repeated here, and then king to b3, rook b4 check, and rook c4. And probably it was here that Carlsen could again have gone rook h7, getting into the line that we looked at earlier, which would have won. But instead he went king b3, rook c8, and why can't he go rook h7 now? Probably he can still go rook h7, but he went a5, which was probably the final mistake. And now after h6, rook e2. Now you can actually take on d3. There's no check here, and what followed was a perpetual, and Caruana escaped by the skin of his teeth. But a very exciting game, and yeah, a nice preview. If the match is going to be like this, then I think we can be really happy. And well, we'll just have to wait and see. But it was a nice preview. I mean, neither guy really showed their hand in the opening, but still we got an exciting game. So yeah, let's see what happens in the Grenke Chess Classic 2018. And I'll sign out for this one. Bye.